Hi everyone, this is Annalise Mitchell and you're listening to the Teachers What's Next podcast. This podcast is the discussion hub for lifelong educators who want to thrive outside of traditional schools and universities.
Hi everyone, this is Nicole and thank you for joining us.
As promised, today Nicole and I will share how we left teaching and the steps we took to enter other fields. We'll also look at what type of jobs or careers teachers can move into once they decide that they want to move on from the classroom or any other type of teaching role. We'll also share the types of roles we tried or tested and what other roles educators can do.
Yes, Annalise, and I'm really looking forward to this because it's so important to have that idea about what it is you can do. It's one of the best ways to not feel stuck. So what are we going to talk about today?
Yep, sorry, what was that?
I said, what are we going to talk about today?
Yes, so what we're going to do, we're going to basically have a conversation about how we both left teaching. Yeah. And I've just written down a few points that I want to share with the audience, and yeah, we'll just go back and forth between me and you, and then we'll look at what type of jobs or careers that teachers can move into in the future, and what we've found, and what things are the best possibilities, and what are the most realistic pathways for teachers. So we'll start.
Perfect.
Great. So the first thing that what I'll do is we'll do it in a conversational tone. So what I'll do is I'll share how I took steps to leave the teaching profession, and what places I worked in, and then we'll hand it over to you, Nicole. Sound good?
Sounds perfect.
Awesome. So what I was doing is after a few years of teaching in the public high school sector, I was offered a role as a curriculum consultant with JCU, which was basically helping third and fourth year education students with junior English and senior English curriculum development. That there was a really good opportunity for me, because at the particular point of time that I was in my career, I was starting to lean, because I was very academically inclined, I started to look towards maybe, becoming a professor eventually in my career. Like, I was starting to notice that high school teaching wasn't for me. And it was mostly because of my mentors around me who were basically saying to me, Annalise, you've got to get out of teaching. So when the opportunity arose to work with James Cook University, I basically took it on wholeheartedly. So I started working with these teachers, doing things like, unit planning, lesson planning, teaching how to implement the curriculum with the Queensland Studies Authority, and then eventually with the Australian curriculum. And that role eventually led into me becoming an online course developer with James Cook, where I started teaching subjects like teaching and learning and language and literacy with James Cook. But during that period, I was still high school teaching, because even though I had that role with James Cook University, it wasn't a full-time role. And I knew that I had to either do a master's degree in teaching with the university, or eventually do my PhD, which I couldn't actually afford to do. Like, where to do your PhD takes many, many years.
Yeah.
And you have to be a research associate for all those years, and you're going to get paid very little during that time period, which I couldn't do because we had a huge mortgage, a lot of debt, and it was just not a feasible option. Meanwhile, a primary school teacher that I was friends with during university, and we'd stayed very good friends, was also finding that she didn't want to stay in classroom teaching either. So we, after many, many conversations together, obviously listening to each other's problems and what was going on within our staff rooms and within our teaching experience, we decided to create a tutoring centre together. So ended up finding a franchise that was located in Innisfail, which is just south from Cairns. And we decided to buy into the franchise, which was relatively cheap, wasn't too expensive for us. And we created this tutoring centre, and for 2.5 years, we operated the centre as well as being full-time teachers, and as well as me in my role with James Cook University. So I was extremely busy.
Sounds like it. Wow.
Yeah, as well as having the 2 sons at home. But I guess I managed to juggle everything. In hindsight, would I have done it that way? I think with everything in life, there's bonuses and there's, negative effects. I think my sons definitely experienced a very hustle bustle type of lifestyle. But I've since learned that teachers tend to do this as well. We tend to take on a lot more than we can handle. You've found that, Nicole, as well?
Oh, yeah. I think so.
Yeah, so this probably reigns very true for you, and you've probably experienced it yourself in your own career. And I think the huge impetus for me was because I was so uncomfortable within the high school teaching environment. Even though I loved my interaction with my with my students and my fellow colleagues, there were so many other issues that we explored in the previous podcast that just wouldn't go away. They were blaringly obvious, and there was teachers telling you left, right, and centre to leave, and they just said, that a lot of them felt like the profession was just not getting better and that things were getting worse, and there was just a whole bunch of discontent within the schools that I was in.
Yeah.
And so I continued down that pathway, but then as I was getting more and more experience within my role in the university, I thought, okay, I'm gonna jump the gun, and I'm going to become a professor, and I'm going to need to do my PhD. So I ended up selling my half of the tutoring centre to my business partner, which she was very happy to do, because it was probably more suited to having one director rather than 2 directors.
Yeah.
And we got it up to almost 100 clients.
Congratulations.
No, it was really, really good. We had a mascot, which my son would often wear, and which was called Perry the Pencil. And we used to do like promotional things that every Saturday would actually promote at the shopping centres. And that's how we actually got the majority of our clients. So if anyone's thinking of operating a tutoring centre, the best way to get clients for a tutoring centre is literally speaking to people face to face, I found. Any other kind of advertising mode is very difficult. But anyway, I'll explain that a bit further later on. And so I took on more of a teaching role with James Cook. And then, and during this period, I also found a role as a senior English teacher with a private school. And I thought I'll try a private school because I'd never taught in private schools. I was one of those teachers that was so pro public teaching in my early career that I thought that private schools were not for me. But then when my son decided he wanted to go to a private school because he wanted to follow his friends who were all at private schools, I said, okay, you can go to the private school. And then he loved it. And he goes, Mum, you've got to check it out. You've got to try it out. All the teachers are happy. Everything's new. And I thought, okay, I'll give that a go.
Yeah.
And I did that for the year. But during that period, although there was certain improvements, definitely, better equipment and much happier staff, I have to say, because it was a religiously based school.
Yeah.
And so I found the importance of values. That was a really eye-opener for me. I think public schools don't emphasize that. And I found that the emphasis of values-based teaching was really important to student development, particularly psychological health and well-being. So that was really important experience. But in my role, I also, what I forgot to mention is that throughout all my teaching, I was always designated the curriculum coordinator. So because of my high interest in creating curriculum and particularly, designing worksheets and unit plans, and I've basically been addicted, and I actually can trace this back to my early childhood.
I can get some strengths coming through there, Annalise.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. When I ever look at your stuff on strengths-based teaching, I realise, that there are certain things that that you have a natural inclination towards. And when I was at St Andrews, this really was glaringly obvious because I just started, and automatically I'm in the role of curriculum coordinator again, and providing resources and stuff, and really loving it, like spending so much time on it. That I didn't even need to be paid for that. And but realizing that behavior management, particularly, I was teaching some classes that were, like I was teaching religious education, and to year 10 students who were not not particularly interested in it. You know, there was a lot of behaviour management, and I just thought it just doesn't suit me. I realised I want to go more into creating education rather than classroom management. Sure. And so that is my experience of teaching in classrooms. So what I realised at the end of that stint is that, okay, I'm going to go towards doing my PhD, and I'm going to continue taking some research associate roles with James Cook University and doing online course development, which was basically teaching their subjects no longer face-to-face, but more on an online role. So I moved to the Gold Coast. My sons wanted to come down here because of, you know, the more opportunities with the courses that were provided, and also my husband also wanted to extend his role within the ambulance service.
Right.
And so we came down here, but as I was doing my PhD, I realised that, you know, when you start to spend enough time in universities and you see the life and the role of the professor and what they have to do on a day-to-day basis, which is a lot of research, marking, dealing with students and all those things, and I was going through a lot of that, I was getting a very good, strong taste over the years. And after many discussions with lecturers and professors, I thought, I can't go down this track. It's going to be more of the same. Okay, there's not going to be the behaviour management, as in, you know, dealing with students that don't want to stay in their seats. But there's a lot of bureaucracy and no time for me to be a mother or for me to create things that I want to create, and being very artistically inclined. I thought, I'm never going to be able to do anything that is going to be outside of just working with the university, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was really good, having that realization. So what I ended up doing was, and during all this period, so once I decided I'm not going to do the PhD any longer, I started my master's in learning and online education development. This was with the University of Southern Queensland, USQ. And it was during that period that I got a position as an instructional designer with a education startup in Brisbane. Because I basically told my former lecturer and friend who I'd worked with many years that I was not going to go down the pathway of being a professor. She was really understanding, which was really good, because I needed her basically tick of approval to say, yep, you can go. I felt indebted to her after all, you know, the support throughout the years, particularly with providing me with the teaching roles. So I started with this education startup, and that's where I really shined with doing the technology side of education. So I actually went in as a instructional designer and IT administrator. They saw my IT skills that I developed throughout the years, because I'd worked with many learning management systems within the schools that I was in. Oh yeah, that's another thing I wanted to mention was within each school that I was in, I was always the one that was a proponent of doing a blended classroom teaching model, where I started creating a Moodle where we'd put all our educational content online and students could access it on a learning management system. And I even used Edmodo as well with my classes, and then I ended up teaching those tools to other teachers. And I was one of the early proponents of actually delivering all our educational materials online. And my biggest impetus for doing that was that, you know, you'd be teaching, you know, your subjects, and students will come into the classroom and who have been away for a few days, and they'll say, oh, you know, I missed so much class, so much of the work. Can you give it to me now? Or they would say to their parents, oh, the teacher has not chased me up and has not given me work that I've missed out on. And, you know, when you've got 5 to 6 subjects that you're teaching, it's hard to remember which students have been away, which ones have not been away.
Definitely.
And I started seeing that as a huge excuse for students to not, and because I was teaching university and my adult students didn't have that excuse because all the content was online.
Right.
So that's where it came from. I started going, okay, guys, I don't care if you've gone to Russia. You are still going to be able to access all our class teaching materials, and I would even segment it based on each week and each lesson in each week. So literally, if they are sick at home, they can still access all the material and complete it. And some students loved it, and some students actually resisted it because they no longer had an excuse.
Yeah.
Which that was a very good experience as well, to learn some of the challenges and difficulties of actually getting technology in the classroom, because often teachers are blamed for resistance, but a lot of students can also resist.
Yeah, that's something we can explore in a future podcast too, I think.
I think so. Yeah. It's important to experience, because particularly when I was doing the masters, I found a lot of students that were doing the masters were very quick to, I'm going to use the word attack for want of a better word, but they would often attack other teachers for being like, laggards, technology, unenthusiastic, and that type of thing. But when I looked at what my experiences were, not all students are particularly eager as well to embrace the new online teaching model, and they can actually cause resistance as well. So it's not just teachers, it can be students as well, and also just the way that, because it's so overcrowded and that type of thing. So we have explored that in the past, but we will continue in the future as well. So that was my experience there. And so once I was with the education technology startup, that was really good, because that was where I really, like I said before, I got to maintain their websites, develop those. I was even maintaining their servers, and that's where I was learning 100 miles per hour, and it was
nice.
Yeah, and that's where I started to really go further into, okay, what areas of education or learning am I going to continue developing? After a year with that company, I thought I started to get the idea that I'm going to step out on my own and actually create my own education startup. So I was very eager to start doing workshops on the Gold Coast, and I'd already created my own curriculum that I'd developed over many years, and I was selling that online. And originally I thought I was going to provide help for students that are writing essay papers at university, and provide all the written documentation around that. So from, how to write effective paragraphs to essay writing and those things, because that's what I knew. I lived and breathed, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to go down that field. But because I was so interested in human nature and the human condition, I started writing about, being happy in your job. What can you do that lights your heart on fire, and those type of things, because they were important to me. I was exploring that, and so I was wanting to teach about it. So I even started offering creative entrepreneur workshops on the Gold Coast.
Wow.
And attracting people that were wanting to create their own creative businesses. And so I met so many different people within different fields, from, fashion, design, arts and crafts. They were creating their own costumes. And that was a real growth experience as well. But then I found that as I was going down that pathway, I still, because of all the technology skills that I developed, I felt like I wasn't utilizing them to the degree that I could. And a position came across my radar for a literacy content developer with a gaming company on the Gold Coast. And because my household is full of gamers, and, there's a lot of game playing here, and I often delve into them myself, I started to think that it was a perfect opportunity, because it almost felt like everything I had done up to that point was tying up for me to actually work for this company. Right. And I actually told them that in the interview. I said to them that I feel like this is meant to be. Like, I've got so much gaming background, technology background, but also literacy background, and I love creating all those things for students to learn, in a more fun environment. And so it was basically the perfect role. And so I've been doing that now for 6 months, and I love the role. I can't tell you how fulfilling it is. I work with great people. They're all, there's programmers. I work with a primary school teacher who's been 17 years in the profession. She's also going to come onto this podcast.
Oh, good.
Yep, and share her experiences. She was a vice principal for a number of years and highly experienced curriculum developer and just in everything primary school based, and just somebody that is very worthwhile for us to have a chat with and to share her expertise and experience. And yeah, I even work with artists, people that create the comics or the characters for the company, and it's the perfect role. But I guess I wouldn't have been able to get in this role. When I look back now on my journey, if you said to me all those years ago in 2009, when I really started realizing I've got to go, on in a different direction.
Yeah.
Although I fantasized about doing some kind of beautiful curriculum development, I didn't think it was possible.
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a very important point.
And so I remember, I think that when you're going towards a trajectory of where you know that you can't go no longer in the direction that you're going in, you just need to keep walking forward and taking up opportunities and having some faith that the dots will connect.
That's right. That's right. I think that's where having that resilience really does come in.
Yes. Yeah. And having those people around you that believe in you. I think I'm definitely an extrovert, like I've shared with you, Nicole, on a number of occasions. And I feel as if I need that validation from at least some people in my life. It's okay that not the whole world doesn't need to agree with you, but some people around you, if they believe in you, that's all you need.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. So that's my story in a big nutshell.
Yeah. Oh, and it was fascinating. And one of the things I love so much about listening to your story, Annalise, is the variety of roles you've had. And you really were able to plot it out for us and show the direct path that you followed from leaving the classroom through to finding the role that you loved. And so I think anyone listening can hear that although the road might seem a long way, or it might seem wide open, or it may even seem that there's not a lot of options, whichever view a person might have.
Yeah.
The key is taking that first step and then taking the next. And that one step will lead to another. It's just having that willing to keep moving.
Yes, and I think that's key. Is just, as long as you're willing to keep moving ahead, and doing things that you enjoy. Because I couldn't imagine if someone had given me a role of, say, doing, I don't know, maths teaching or something like that, where I'm completely not naturally inclined towards, I wouldn't have been able to keep moving ahead because it wouldn't have been something that interested me naturally. Yeah. So it has to be something that you think, oh yeah, I'd like to do that. Like when I got the role first offered with James Cook, I loved the idea of teaching other educators.
Yeah.
And automatically I was like, oh yes, I'll take that.
Yeah.
If they'd given me something else that wasn't something that I'm interested in, then obviously I wouldn't have been able to keep going.
Yeah, that's very important too. I think so. My journey was slightly different.
Okay.
It has been a lot more one track in a sense. I left because I wanted to have a wider reach. So I was working in the classroom, and the strategies and things I was using in the classroom were working, and I wanted to have a wider reach. So first thing I did was write a book.
Oh, wow.
So I wrote a book which I called Is This My Story? And I used my long service leave to get it finished. So I spent my entire long service leave doing the final edits and drafts of my book and finding out how to publish it and all the rest of it, and absolutely loved it. And then I went back into the classroom and it felt so small. Wow. It really did feel small. And I loved working with the students. I loved my colleagues, but I felt constricted. And I felt like I'd been out in the big wide world and then all of a sudden put into a closed room. And it just didn't fit. So I decided, and it was quite a agonizing decision because I had a lot of security in my role, but I wasn't internally happy. I wasn't fulfilled is probably what it was. I had all my needs met, but there was just something else. So I took the big leap of faith and I left the classroom and cried the last day and started working on my own. So I went straight into my own business because I wanted
Wow.
to set up Is This My Story? What I realised, though, is that I still needed to earn an income, and in order for me to do my work effectively, I still needed to keep my finger on the pulse in terms of the classroom. So I registered with the Department of Education. I'd always been in the private school system, so I registered with the department so I could do casual teaching, both in the independent system and in the state system.
Yep.
And I started teaching as a casual, and in the meantime running my own business. What I realised was that I didn't really have a lot of business skills. So I did what they call the NICE program. So the NICE program is a program set up by the government where you can where you're funded. It's just like a small, it's almost like a small business grant in the way you get a certain amount of money every week. I think it was a couple of $100 every week. And that's just to tide me over a bit while the business was only earning a low income. But I was also put through a small business management course. And the reason the government does that is to, you know, how most businesses fail within the first year or so. The aim is to give businesses a start and a set of skills so that they are set up for success, and to do your business plan. Because obviously if you have your own business, you need to have a business plan. And that was really good for me, although as an educator myself, the person who was running the course was not as skilled, shall I say. He was great in business, but not a great teacher, which was a bit frustrating for a teacher.
Yeah.
But I managed, and I did learn some great skills and things that I needed to run the business. However, still, even after 12 months, wasn't earning quite enough to be self-sustaining with the business. So I also did online training and developing. So just as an online assessor. So I had done my certificate 3 in workplace training.
Huh?
So I've got my Cert 3. That allowed me then to work as an online assessor for people who want to do their certificate 3 in education support. And that was just an online role I could do anywhere. So when I wasn't getting NICE payments anymore, what I had was this online role that could just help keep me topped up. So really, since I've left school, I left school in 2012, for the last 5 years, I've been doing a mixture of running my own business, working in an online training environment, and casual teaching. So it is my teaching as a casual that has exponentially increased, I think, my own teaching skills. And I use that very much in my own business, because my business is helping people understand who they are and how they're going to get to where they want to go, helping people understand their strengths and use their own strengths in the decision-making process and in the well-being process. So I practice. When I come up with an idea or a theory, or I read about an idea or a theory, I then can see how it plays out in the classroom. I can also see how it plays out in the online environment. So it's this, for me, it's been this perfect blend of theory and research that I do for myself and my business, and then I go out and train and coach in my own business. But then I can also maintain very much my own credibility, because I am working myself in an online environment and in a teaching environment. So I've been focused the entire time on, is this my story? Helping people understand their strengths and use their strengths to feel content with who they are, and because they know who they are. And working predominantly with teachers, students, and parents. So recently I have got my courses accredited through NESA, which is the New South Wales Education Standards Authority. So I can offer professional development to teachers, that's where they get their accredited hours, and building the business. And it's really, really exciting to have that freedom to do creatively what I love to do, and then yet also maintaining my contact with the classroom, which is what I love.
That's great, Nicole. That's amazing. And I can see that strong entrepreneurial streak in you. That what I've found is that a lot of teachers, particularly English teachers, when I look at entrepreneurs that have created their own successful enterprises, they often have an English teaching background. Did you know that? Or have you?
No. It's interesting, isn't it? You'd think it was the business teachers, but I think the teachers who have that artistic bent, it comes to the stage where you do want to be more creative.
I couldn't agree more. I think when you are attracted to the humanities, and particularly English teaching and literature, there is a very strong creative streak, and entrepreneurs have that as one of their strongest strengths. And that is something that is clearly illustrated in your story, because you had that experience of going, I want to do more than what I like. Even though you're fulfilled, what it sounds like within your role, you thought that your creative side of you wanted to create something that was a lot more, I guess, in alignment with your nature of getting content out there and reaching a wider audience, and also helping people go find their strengths, which is something that you experienced yourself. So you want to share that. There's also that natural inclination towards sharing your experiences as well.
Oh, yes, definitely. And I think too, it becomes an age thing and a value, no, a growth thing. I mean, like, talk about when you have needs met, when you have your needs met for food and shelter, you have your love, and belonging, you're part of your family and things like that. Then the next needs that come up tend to be that idea of growth and contribution, particularly contribution.
Yes.
And I think you get to that point in your 40s where you think, I want to be doing more for the world. I want to be giving more, to a wider range. And that's very much where I was, I think, in my, being in my 40s and thinking I can be giving, I can be contributing more, I can have a wider reach if I move beyond just the classroom.
That's right, and exactly right. And I think, they say in your 20s and your 30s, you're learning the skills and you're finding out who you are. Like I often say to my sons, in my 20s, I didn't know who I was. Yeah. I just knew I was attracted to education, and I would often find myself, drawn like a moth to a flame whenever I saw anything related to education. And so, you're just doing things that you naturally feel drawn towards. But as the years go by, you realize that you are kind of where you're doing a lot of the things that you are doing are generally kind of suited to you, but you don't really know. You're kind of doing what everyone else is doing. Yeah. So you're trying to fit in. That's what I'm trying to get at here. And what you need to do is actually spend that time on your own and spend that time exploring, experiencing different things to start to realize, this is where I can actually make the greatest contribution, because this is where my real strengths lie, rather than trying to be what everyone else is, good at, or what other people think you should be, because that's when you really are not. You're playing towards your strengths and, doing things that could potentially provide you with much greater fulfillment.
That's right. And listen, and look, this is what I've made my whole life. my whole why, as Simon Sinek would say, my mission is to help people be themselves and to feel comfortable being themselves, to understand their strengths and use their strengths every day and feel fulfilled, knowing that they've got wonderful things to offer their societies. So I talk about being the author of your own story rather than character in somebody else's, and having your story linked to the library of life. And that's really it. That's where I am, and that's where I will stay now, I think, till the day I die.
That's great. And would you say, Nicole, because of you going through those experiences, clearly the trajectory that you're on are based on what you've experienced?
Oh, yes. Look, it was very much what I'd experienced in the classroom. See, I came to teaching late. Before I was in teaching, I was in retail. I did the typical Aussie thing, I guess, that so many of us do. I travelled, then I went into retail, was a bit disillusioned very much by the whole sales and marketing world. And so I went to uni as a mature age student and did an arts degree, and then wasn't quite sure what I would do, and thought I'd always wanted to be a teacher but had been talked out of it. So I did my dip ed. And so I was 27, I think, when I first entered the classroom, because of everything else I'd done. And for me, it was everything I'd done prior to going into the classroom that helped me realize the classroom was where I wanted to be. And then it was in the classroom that I realized what I enjoyed most about teaching English wasn't necessarily a whole love of literature, but it was about how stories help us understand ourselves and our place in the world and how we can help the world. So I then went, that's how Is This My Story was born. And so again, very much like yourself, it has been a step process of refining what it is I was put on this earth to do.
That's great. And I think there's a lot of people that actually enter the profession in a very similar way. I've met a lot of teachers that have done the same thing. And I was in my mid-20s when I started uni to become a teacher. And I had little children. They were, little toddlers when I was studying at university. And I think the experience of being a mature age was better for me. I wouldn't have been able to leave school and go straight into teaching. Yeah. I didn't even know teaching was actually a possibility. I thought I actually had no idea what I was going to do with my life. But I could see that it was actually a primary school teacher that saw me creating things for my sons in my spare time, who actually said, you should be a teacher. She goes, look, she goes, you're doing this, all this work. And I said, and that's where I started, moving towards that direction. But I think all those things shape you and shape the kind of person that you become, and also how you can help others, because you have experienced it yourself of, not working towards your strengths or finding out what your strengths are and actually compounding on those. And now you can share that from a position of strength because you've experienced it.
Definitely.
That's great. Yeah. So what we'll do, thank you for sharing that, Nicole. That was awesome. We'll do that. We'll look at now what types of jobs or careers teachers can move into. So I've already illustrated that instructional design, which was something that was like a natural fit because I was already developing online curriculum. So this is like writing curriculum content for education and non-education companies. There's a lot of companies at the moment that are looking for teachers to write their online learning materials. So that is a definite, very feasible role, and it's something that's just starting to grow. And so they reckon that the next 25 years is going to be a massive growth area for online education.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Certainly, I know the online work that I do.
So it's huge. And if anyone's looking to, continue curriculum design and if they really enjoy creating content for the online space, then that's definitely a feasible area. And you're working in that area as well, Nicole.
Yep.
And so, you can see that what you're doing is just going to grow and grow and grow. They reckon we're just at the beginning. We haven't even tasted what's going to happen in regards to education online.
Yeah.
And sorry.
I was going to say, and then the other role that someone could do is tutoring, as you've done and worked in different roles. So you can tutor privately, you can tutor with organisations, and you had some great tips there for people who want to tutor, how they can grow their tutoring business.
Yes, and I honestly, if you're, this is what I really recommend. If someone is really in a role where they're suffering and they really think that they can't continue, so I've seen some teachers that are that burnt out, or that are just in a school environment that's really, really toxic, or they realize they've got to go, but they need money to survive on. Tutoring is a really good way of actually finding, making income and learning, what other things you can do, possibly even studying while you're tutoring privately. What I ended up doing is when I started Life Changing Learning, which was my education startup, I took a lot of high school and university students, and I would do a lot of editing, a lot of tutoring, mentoring throughout their throughout their course or throughout their senior years of schooling, and that enabled me to survive through that period when I was building my business up.
Yeah,
and I highly recommend that as a possibility. And it's really you can survive quite nicely if you're on across all the platforms, the online tutoring platforms that exist. When people, put in your particular suburb, all these different ones will come up, like Gumtree and online tutors and those type of websites. Your name will come up for the particular region that you're in. And yeah, I found that as a very good earning tool when you're starting a business. How about you, Nicole? Did you do any private tutoring?
No, I didn't. Funnily enough, it was one of those things that I almost have made a choice not to do. I decided to do I did the casual teaching. I think instead of doing the tutoring, I found casual teaching was quite interesting, a learning experience. I enjoyed it actually.
Yeah, I think that's true actually. I did end up doing some casual teaching, but I don't know whether I just end up picking schools that are not good or get that kind of. I don't know how life works out this way, but I just got some. I had some quite terrible experiences that I was like, oh no, this is definitely not for me. And so I realized, yeah, I definitely preferred the one-on-one. And because I had had so much experience in the uni sector as well, I think that enabled me to have a lot of adult clients.
Yeah,
which was good. So I ended up doing like, business students, psychology, social work, nurses, every different subject area except the sciences. And that was really good as an opportunity to not only develop, more skills in my ability to, teach and write essays and those type of things, but also I ended up seeing so many different platforms. Like I'd have students from different universities, and I'd see all these different education platforms. So that I was very curious on how the learning management systems looked like with all these different universities.
Yeah.
And so every time, I'd get a student with Bond University or even students located in other universities around Australia, because a lot of people study online now.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was very curious on what the tools looked like, what the teachers were doing. So it gave me real good insight as well to how other universities deliver their education.
Yeah.
So next one is adult education, which we've kind of touched on already. So that's things like working for TAFEs, working for universities, colleges, online providers, and that type of thing. Because you've had experience in the TAFE sector, Nicole?
That's right. So it's not actually, I don't actually work with the TAFE sector, but I work with one of the biggest online providers, and it's been wonderful. As I said, it's depending on what your areas of expertise are and where you have experience, it's a very easy way to create an income. As I said, I download the assessments, I grade the assessments, I put them back up again, and it really doesn't matter where I am. I'm able to do this grading, and we grade the way the assessments are graded, so that you're offering feedback that is growth perspective feedback, so that feedback is helping the learning situation, and we answer questions. So I feel like I guess in some ways I feel like I am a tutor, an online tutor.
Yeah.
As part of the trainer and assessor, online trainer and assessor role. And I look at something I definitely recommend to teachers who are looking at what else can they do. Do your Certificate 4, your TAE, Certificate 4 in Assessment and Education, and look at what's out there.
Great. Yes. And there's a lot of opportunity for that. A lot of education providers are moving online, and they're looking for teachers that are interested in writing in that space, or even, like you're saying, like grading. That's one of the ways that a lot of teachers end up entering university and TAFE, is they start with grading at first, and then they get more roles as they go along. So if there's an opportunity to do any grading, I often advise teachers that want to move out of the profession to start taking on things that like grading papers, or even tutoring and mentoring students online. And that's a way they can actually start entering that space and getting familiar with it, how everything works. And it sounds to me, Nicole, that you don't mind marking.
Well, it's not I would say it is just very mechanical, particularly the marking that I'm doing in this certificate course. And it really is just as a way of earning a bit of income that I know that's there, that will just pay a few bills. So it's my security, I guess. And security at that bottom level of need or that, I mean, it's, sorry, when I say bottom level of need, it is a core level of need. It's something that we need to have a sense of security, but I'm not looking for anything flashy at that level. So I know that every paper I grade at least then gives me 2 hours worth of time that I can then do whatever I like. So I can be at home on my computer, do the grading, get that out of the way, and then I can have the fun to play. So I wouldn't say it's something I find overly thrilling. However, it's an easy way to earn an income.
Okay, well, that's good. I haven't heard you complain yet. I definitely, after marking for several years, I started to really think, no, I don't want to continue marking. With university papers, sometimes you can get students will give you like 80-page assignments, and I'm not exaggerating. I wish I was. Within teaching and learning subjects, because you know how they would incorporate their lesson plans within their assignment, and plus all their evaluations and reflections. And after a while, I realized, oh my goodness, this is definitely a very. I look forward to AI doing marking. Like I'm not a resistor in that regard. I think teachers will definitely play a role in evaluating assessment, but just that sheer volume of work, I don't mind AI taking over that role. So
I understand completely. Well, the fourth type of career that we were talking about, so we've already talked about instructional design and tutoring and adult education, and the fourth one there is writing, and that's one of the things that I do find a lot more interesting. What about you?
Yes, yeah, I particularly, I think both me and you being English teachers, we're naturally inclined to love writing, and I ended up doing a lot of website copy, which is writing for other people's websites, like fitness trainers and tourist operators, and I was basically writing their content for their websites, and I would take that opportunity whenever I could. I didn't do any ghostwriting, but I know that that's another opportunity for teachers as well, where they can actually write for companies, where they can speak in the voice of the people that operate those companies, or even speak as the company, and that can actually be a very attractive form of income for former teachers.
Yeah, definitely. And even setting up your own website, set up your own blog. If there's something, if you're still teaching and you're looking into a particular area, so this is obviously the path that I took. I was blogging for at least 12 months before I actually left the classroom. So I had set up my website. I set it up as a basic blog, and I would write about the things that I was interested in, that I was researching myself, and how it was playing out in the classroom. So again, it was just that. So when I did leave the classroom, it was that a more seamless flow. I just had more time to be doing writing.
That's great. And what platform did you use to start up your first website?
I used WordPress. I'm a big fan of WordPress.
Yeah. And WordPress is good. And I often, like now, with things like Wix, and there's quite a few others as well that I find so attractive and easy to use, that it's become easier and easier all the time to start up your own website.
Definitely.
Yeah, so it's not something that you need to be tech savvy, or you need to be somebody that loves, delving into how to construct a website. No, not at all. It's something that, I've been teaching family and friends to do, and within an hour, they've got their own website. They're home and running, basically.
Exactly. And you might be a teacher who is interested in cooking, for example, and you can set up your own cooking website and blog and create all sorts of wonderful content that can then lead to business opportunities afterwards. Or you might be interested in travel or crafting, or look at what your hobbies are. Look at because it will give you an idea of where your passions are.
Great.
And there's some really good opportunities out there for people.
And that's exactly right. That lends ourselves to the last one here that we discussed, which is operating your own business, creating your own business, buying a franchise, or doing something that you've always wanted to do. And like you did, Nicole, you started a year before you finished teaching. You started your blog and you started writing because you had that. Was that like a vision that you had ahead of you? When you started?
Yeah. Yep. I guess, I know it can almost sound flaky, but really I felt like I had a calling.
Great.
And that was it. And so, you had the franchise experience, which you could probably talk a bit more if people are interested. So if people are interested in any of these particular jobs or careers that we've talked about, please let us know, and we can set up a podcast where we're talking just about that one and to be giving you more specific advice. So what we really need here is feedback from you guys. What is it you'd like to talk about? Obviously, Annalise can talk about the franchising opportunities. I could talk about, or we can both talk about creating your own business. I could talk more about the NICE program if anyone's interested in something like that. So remember, we want feedback.
That's exactly right. No, that's fantastic, Nicole, because, what will happen with this podcast over time is that the listeners will be basically guiding its development, and all the podcasters that I listen to, they take their listeners' feedback very seriously, and that's exactly how me and Nicole are inclined as well. We want people to provide us with insights and questions and what they want for us to further explore, or what we're not exploring enough. And we'll definitely hone in on those things because we're interested in the same thing as you are. We want to find out, what the future of teaching and learning holds, what areas aren't being talked about, what things need to be discussed, and so forth. So, feedback would be awesome. So what we'll finish up now with just like some action steps that you can take with moving forward. I'm very action orientated, and so is Nicole. We want to leave you with certain steps that you can, particularly if you're in that part of your career right now where you are looking to leave or you've just left and you're wanting to find out how you can actually move forward and what's the best way to go about it. And so one of the things that was really useful for me was taking opportunities that arose around me. So like I said before, when I was offered that position with James Cook, I remember everybody was offered in my staff room that position. So the head of department turned around. I was only a couple of years in teaching, and she goes, "Oh, does anybody want to work with junior and senior English teachers with James Cook?" Nobody put their hand up.
Wow.
And I was like, holy schmoly, yes, please. Even though I was like, very busy doing curriculum development, and, I had 6 classes and it was just full on, and it was a very tough school. I saw that as like a ray of light, like a guiding light. And I didn't even think what it was going to lead to. I just knew that I loved the academic arena and I loved, teaching and learning. So I didn't even hesitate. And I remember the head of department just looking at me and just smiled and goes, "Yep." She goes, "You can have it, Annalise." And that was it. So what I think is saying yes to things that just feel right is you never know where it's going to end up.
Definitely. And so that's where it comes to the second point there. Try lots of things, because over time you will see what you like and what you don't. And sometimes the things that you didn't think you would like, or you didn't think there would be an opportunity, becomes the best. I know when I went for my interview and I went to do the online marking, I almost didn't go to the interview. I thought, marking isn't really a thing that I love. I'm not sure if it's going to be a great thing to do. And yet here I am, almost 4 years on, still doing it, still finding it just a really nice staple income. So sometimes even things that you might not like end up being an opportunity, not because of what it is that you're doing that you love, but because it gives you a greater opportunity to do what you love. So definitely try lots of different things.
That is so true. Experience is everything. And you might even think that you'd like to do something, but if you haven't experienced it, you don't know. And like I illustrated with my earlier experiences, it wasn't until I was in the role, in particular when I thought I'm going to be a professor. I love listening to lecturers and professors, and I still do today. I'm on YouTube quite a bit listening to professors speak, and I admire them, but I can't be them. And until you know that in your bones, do you feel that way, Nicole? Until you know something deep inside yourself and you've lived and breathed it, you can't really know whether you're going to like it or not.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, we want to also, both me and Nicole being very action-orientated, we've emphasised the idea of you need to keep moving forward. So don't stop learning and keep trying out new experiences. And in regards to learning, like I completed a diploma in business administration and management when I was with Alvin Tutoring. Would you believe? That's another thing. And that was because me and my former business partner, we recognised that we lacked those skills. And that ended up paying very well for me, because when I wanted to create my own business, I had those skills, already under my belt. And it also showed me that what areas of business I didn't want to go into. So you need to experience those things to go, oh, okay, I wouldn't like that role, but because I've experienced it.
Definitely. So it's about keep moving forward. Just think about it one step at a time.
That's it. Yep. And always having faith that the dots will connect.
Exactly.
That's key. And last but not least, it's finding like-minded people, which is actually a lot harder than it sounds. And you're probably already experiencing this for those of you that are listening right now, finding people that are definite go-getters, that want to move ahead, and that haven't turned cynical or bitter or jaded. Because I find that a lot of people, even though they might not project that to the outside world, when you get them by themselves, the reason why they're not moving forward is because they believe that it's hopeless, or that they are going to be stuck wherever they are. And with those kind of people, you need to keep a distance from, because if you stay with them, what I found is that you'll absorb their way of thinking, particularly if you're extroverted. We tend to be sponges. And what I was sharing with Nicole earlier is that if I'm around people that think that the whole world is over, I will definitely pick it up. Yeah. And I need to quickly get out of there. Like, there's some part of me that just knows it's wrong. So I'll quickly realize, I can't stay with this type of thinking. How about you, Nicole? Are you like that?
Yeah, to a certain extent. Perhaps not quite to the same extent. I do find it draining. And so the more I'm around people who are not like-minded, the more time I need to spend around people who are like-minded or around nature to re-energize myself. So although that's right. So although I can manage it, I can keep a distance, I guess, for want of a better word, I do need to be around like-minded people. So I guess it's being around like-minded people who provide the energy. We provide each other the energy, really, and the inspiration to go on and do bigger and brighter things. And so I think, thinking in terms of it from a positive perspective or a strengths-based perspective, I'd like to think about being around like-minded people, because that's what will create more momentum.
That's right. Yeah. And you often hear like entrepreneurs and people that are, within the space of creating things that, don't currently exist, or trying to improve things that currently exist. They often emphasize that the importance of finding like-minded people, that at least some people that believe in what you're doing or believe in your ability to do things. Yeah. And that's key to your personal development. So those are the things that you can do. Action steps to moving forward, because those are the things that both in my conversations with you, Nicole, that both me and you needed to get where we are to where we are today. Definitely.
So I might just quickly repeat those for everyone, just in case. So you take your opportunities that arise around you, try lots of things, keep moving forward, and find like-minded people.
That's it. Yep. They're basically the keys to becoming one day into a role that really you find fulfilling. So those are the things that you need to do to get to that spot, basically.
Yes.
So in our next podcast, we'll be looking at what teaching and learning will look like in the years ahead. So what role will things like AI and virtual reality play in educating students, and what opportunities exist for educators in every field?
So that sounds nice and exciting. Nice future focus, definitely future focus for our next podcast.
That's right. And I think quite exciting when it comes to looking at all the predictions as well, Nicole, because there's a lot of exaggeration, and there's a lot of teachers also worried about their roles being made obsolete. And I'd like to kind of debunk some of those myths.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Annalise.
Very good. So thank you for listening and finding the Teachers What's Next podcast. Of course, if you know of a friend or colleague who you think will benefit from the podcast, please share this with them. Thank you.
Yeah, so also remember to leave your reviews on iTunes, because your reviews is what will help other teachers find us.
And you can contact me via my website at lifechanginglearning.com.au. How can they find you, Nicole?
If you'd like to reach me via that website I was talking about. So my website is isthismystory.com, and it's been really wonderful chatting to everyone again today.
Awesome. You can also leave feedback and any suggestions for what you would like us to talk about or to consider including in the show on the Teachers What's Next website. There will be a link included with the notes section of this podcast, whether you're using iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud. Thank you again, and take care.
Bye, everyone.
Awesome.
There we go.